Economics, we have this very important concept of externalities. So, what are externalities? They are the cost and benefit others feel from your action. That is externalities. So, let's examine externalities. So, whatever you do, whatever you produce, or whatever you're doing in the process of production, there are certain costs and benefits that others in the society experience from your action. So, of course, society does not restrict what one does, but one should realize that one does not live on an island by oneself. Rather, one lives in a community and one's action affects the quality of life of the others. So, we should be mindful of our actions, or whatever the production that we undertake we should see that what we generate is positive externalities. There should be benefits, and we should not incur costs to the society. So this is what economics describes, this phenomena, that one's action causes to others as externalities. That is, it is a cost or a benefit that falls not on the person directly involved in an economic activity, but that falls on others. So that is externalities, and externalities can be positive, it can be negative, both. So let's just take positive externality, an example I've written as bees, and for negative as steel mills. Let's take externality, positive externality. It is a benefit that falls on a person not directly involved in an activity. Let's think of a beekeeper. The person raises bees to sell the honey, but the bees also happen to fly around pollinating flowers for local farmers, thereby increasing their crop yields and providing them with a positive externality. Let's take the negative externality. That means it is a cost that falls on a person not directly involved in an activity. Think of a steel mill that, as a byproduct of producing steel, puts out lots of soot and smoke. The pollution is a negative externality that causes smog and pollutes the air that everyone living near the factory breathes. So you understand, I hope you understand that both are producers in their own way, but one, the beekeeper, generates positive externalities, and the mill owner is generating negative externalities. So let's talk a little about positive externalities and how do you calculate the consequence of positive externalities. So sometimes it's found that positive externality is that goods and services that provide positive externalities to third parties end up being underproduced. Why? Underproduction is typical for goods that generate positive externalities because the recipients of the positive externalities don't have to pay for them. The producers of goods that generate positive externalities have no incentive to provide extra units of output for the benefit of those receiving the positive externalities. So somebody from the outside should make sure that they let them generate more of positive externalities. To see why goods with positive externalities are underproduced, consider the beekeeper, the one. So they raise bees so that can sell the honey and make some money. The people who buy the honey do so because the honey brings them utility when they eat it. But because the bees go around pollinating the flowers of the local farmers, these farmers also benefit from beekeeping activities. But here's the crucial point. The farmers don't pay for the benefits that the bees bring them. The bees just fly in and out of their fields, and there's no way to keep track of them. The result is that the person is going to raise fewer hives of bees than she would have or he would have if the farmers were paying for the benefits that the bees were bringing them. So this is how it is said that these benefits, in order to say capitalize on that, they should see that the social benefit that it's generating, that can be upheld. How? By giving subsidies. Because markets tend to underproduce goods and services that have positive externalities, people have come up with ways to encourage higher levels of production. The most common way to encourage higher production of goods that generate positive externalities is with a subsidy, a government payment to an individual or firm to encourage it to produce more of a given type of output. Crucially, the government doesn't receive anything back from the recipient of the subsidy in return for the payment. The beneficiaries are the consumers who receive the additional output. Like, for example, the beekeeping business. The government may pay a sort of a honey subsidy, say 20 cents a pound, to encourage to keep more hives. The result is more bees pollinating more flowers, leading to higher output levels for the farmers. So in fact, the government may even tax farmers to get the money to subsidize the entrepreneur, honey entrepreneur. Doing so would make the program pay for itself. Similarly, governments also often subsidize the planting of trees in and around cities. They must do so because the markets don't factor in many of the benefits of trees: shade, cooling, cleaner air, less soil erosion, and so on. Without this subsidy, fewer trees would be planted than is socially optimal. So one thing leads to another. Now, talking about negative externalities, we talked about the steel mill, for example. The mill's managers consider only their private costs of raw materials and the running of the plant. If someone, for example, owned the atmosphere, the mill's managers would have to pay for the right to emit pollution. And if the atmosphere were owned by the people who would have to inhale the mill's pollution, the firm would be forced to pay those people for the right to pollute and would be forced to reckon with the harm that the pollution causes them. But because nobody owns the atmosphere and firms don't have to pay to pollute into it, there's no mechanism for making the mill's managers consider the cost of pollution that fall into members of the broader community. The result is that the firm overproduces steel. So since they are not accountable, it doesn't matter. So in the negative externalities, that leads overproduction is found. It is a result for them to take account of the external pollution costs. So why? Because there's a socially optimal amount of steel that can be produced or should be produced. That means the benefits don't cross the costs involved in terms of the social costs. So the goal isn't to eliminate negative externalities. Rather, the goal is to ensure that when you weigh all costs and all benefits, the benefits from the units of output that are produced outweigh the costs of producing them, including the costs of the negative externalities. That is important. So the government should step in and they should deal with the negative externalities. For example, pass laws banning or restricting activities that generate negative externalities. For example, to dispose of polluted substance in the water, or pass laws that directly target the negative externality itself rather than the underlying activity that leads to the externality. For instance, steel mills are now required to install smokestack scrubbers that filter out most of the pollution before it goes into the atmosphere. Also, the government should impose costs such as pollution taxes on people or firms generating negative externalities. For example, the government can charge companies for each ton of pollution they emit. So students, go through your text, see what are the examples given in your textbook, define externalities, then you also define or write down the answer to what are positive externalities, what are negative externalities with the help of examples, and you're good to go. So in the next class I'll be talking about something else. There we go.